You have a perfect man standing before you, and you doubt him, and you doubt God, and that must have upset him.
But for some reason, God did not want to take us out, because he calls us to ask for forgiveness.
I realized that I need to learn how to forgive, and first of all, I need to learn how to love, so that love.
My name is Luke from GospelHouse Ministries, and welcome to Gospel Interviews Season 2. We only did 4 episodes in per se the last episode, but I promise you that in this season, we're going to go bigger, and I want to ask more questions. In this interview, I am interviewing one of my good friends about why is it important to forgive. So the first question is going to be, have you ever been wronged or betrayed before?
Yeah, I've been betrayed a lot. It's a terrible thing to go through. It hurts a lot. So yeah, I have been betrayed.
What was your first reaction or response when you found out, like the next thought that came up when you found out you were being betrayed or wronged?
I don't think I really had any emotion. I think I was just in complete shock.
Well, do you remember when Jesus himself talked about forgiveness?
Yes, I do.
It's in Matthew 5:21-26 and 43-48. So Jesus actually talked about forgiveness in Matthew 18:21-22, which actually is about when Peter was saying, Jesus, how many times should I forgive my enemies? 7 times? So how often would you say Jesus' disciples misunderstood or even wronged him?
Jesus' disciples have wronged Jesus many times, actually, especially right before Jesus was crucified. Peter, I believe he was the one who denied Christ 3 times. I'm sure that had to have hurt Jesus pretty bad. Because one of his own disciples, like a man he's walked with for a very long time, and that had to have hurt him.
Yeah, actually, you are correct. Believe it or not, the disciples throughout all the Gospels misunderstood everything that Jesus said. After Jesus says, I'm going to go and die on a cross, and this is what's going to happen. And Peter's like, no, you're not going to do that, right? No way. And he's like, get behind me, Satan. This is my Father's plan. Do you think Jesus had any negativity towards them because of their lack of faith?
Yeah, he probably did have some negativity towards it because their lack of faith in that moment is just so unbelievable. Here you have a perfect man standing before you, and you doubt him, and you doubt God, and that must have upset him. And for another example is when Jesus was praying in the garden, they slept. There was a lack of faith there when they chose themselves over God. And I remember it's saying that Jesus was upset. He was upset with them, and that was how Jesus, he could have been upset and had negativity towards their faith, their lack of faith.
True. The lack of faith from what you just said, like when he was in the garden, he was praying, stuff like that, and they didn't come with him. But we know that Jesus never kept that negativity in his mind, right? He never did. He didn't hold a grudge, but he had faith, which it destroys every negative thought, penetrates the mind, because we all have it. Every single day, even myself. Just as Jesus forgave his disciples, do you think he calls us to do the same to others?
Yeah, of course. And I guess saying that Jesus was negative against their faith, I didn't mention that maybe Jesus, he wasn't holding a grudge against them for their lack of faith. He could be upset in that moment, but he always forgave his disciples. And that's what he calls us to do. He always calls us to forgive others, because if we hold grudges against people, that's one of his commandments says to love thy neighbor. We should always live out that commandment, because if you don't forgive others, that's just having hate in your heart for a very long time, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah, and you're completely right. Of course, we are actually, if we think about it, we are actually breakers of God's law. If we think about it, I mean, Romans 3:10 and Romans 3:23, 3:10 says, for none is righteous, no, not one. All of the psalmists say it, and even 1 John 1:10 even says, whoever does not say that I have sinned, you call him a liar. God a liar if you don't say, like, I've never sinned. If anyone should be condemned, it should be us. but for some reason, God did not want to take us out, because he calls us to ask for forgiveness. Just like in 1 Kings, when King Ahab, King Ahab, right? The wickedest king that have ever been on Israel. And he takes Naboth's vineyard. Jezebel, the worst wife ever, said, okay, I'm going to do that. Kills Naboth and allows him to have his garden. And God says to Elijah at that point, he says, you need to go and you need to tell Ahab to his face that what he did was wrong. There's going to be judgment because you did that to Naboth. But then what happened is that then when Elijah went, then Ahab fell down on his knees and he repented. It said he ripped his clothes and he put ash on his head. And God says, I'm going to give mercy to him because if he repented, so I'm going to put it on his sons, hit my judgment on his sons then. Basically what I'm saying is that if God calls us to ask for forgiveness, so in 1 John 1:9, you might know this verse, if we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. And what's even better is that Jesus came to take all of that sin so we could become righteous. As 2 Corinthians 5:21 would say that he who became no sin became sin so we would know the righteousness of God. If God forgives us for breaking his holy law, I think that's a motivation for us to forgive others, because if anyone should be condemned, it should be us, because we fall short of the glory of God. That should motivate us to forgive others. Don't you agree?
Yes, I do agree.
Here, I'm going to actually ask you this. How would you say we should start by doing forgiveness? Because by nature, we want to hold a grudge. We want to get even with someone or just a little bit higher. So what would you say that we should start with forgiveness? What's the first act of forgiveness when we start like holding a grudge for someone?
I would say look at everybody through Jesus's eyes. Look at them at how Jesus looks at them. Jesus looks at every one of us as his child. And even if they don't believe in him, he still loves them and he still pursues them. And I think that's how we need to start living our lives, is see how Jesus loves others. And I think love is actually one of the most important steps to forgiveness. Because if you can't learn to love others with different political views, different beliefs, different ideas, then I don't think you'll get to that first step of forgiveness. No, sir. So Yes. Love the person, not the sin. That is very important.
I think the first thing of forgiving others is to put down our hate, put down our anger. And as Romans 12:19 would say, that let the vengeance be the Lord's thing. Just put down your hate, put down your things that are holding you back. Put down that and let God handle them. Because what God could do could be something that you could never think about. I mean, it's you can't fathom it. It's either like he's going to take care of the situation by punishing them, or he's going to lead them to salvation by allowing you to be that light of saying, you know what, I forgive you. I know you did wrong to me. I'm going to forgive you anyway. So we're going to end off with this. Will you allow love to penetrate anger to release forgiveness even to your worst enemy?
Oh yeah, for sure. And it was actually, there was a time in my life where I had this person who, she really hurt me, and I didn't have the forgiveness in my heart. And I thought I did. I had thought that I was being a good Christian and that I had forgiven her, but I actually hadn't. And I figured that out after I made a couple mistakes, and I realized that I need to learn how to forgive, and first of all, I need to learn how to love, so that love can destroy all that hate in my heart, because there shouldn't be any room for hate in your heart when you have Jesus, because Jesus is our first love, and that is all we should have in our hearts, is love for Jesus and his people.
Well, thank you for talking with me, and hopefully maybe sometime in the future we'll talk again. My name is Luke from GospelHouse Ministries, and I'll see you guys in the next video. So that was a fun conversation, wasn't it? Hey, I have a question for you. Do you on a regular basis forgive people? Or are you like the majority of people who hold a grudge and want to get even and just a little bit more? Do you forgive just like Jesus told us to forgive? Guys, although we are justified by Christ, we still have a sinful nature. So do you let that grudge control you, or do you control the grudge? How are you forgiving others? I want you to ponder that today as we end off this video. My name is Luke from GospelHouse Ministries, and hopefully I'll see you next time on Gospel Interviews. Well, do you remember when Jesus himself talked about forgiveness?
Yes, I do.
Do you know the passage?
No.
You do?
He said, forgive others and you'll be forgiven.
That is all. That is true. That is, yes. Will you allow love to penetrate anger, to release forgiveness even on your worst enemy?
Could you read that again? I'm sorry.
You're completely fine. I did the same thing.
I tried to
Don't worry,
understand the question. Sorry.
It's all right. He was having a problem trying to make these. I want to say your name, but I don't. Okay, I'm just. Yeah. And this is Britton. So, my name is Luke. So, this conversation that you're about to see, we're going to be talking about forgiveness. Let's try that again. That kind of ruined the entire thing. My name is Luke from GospelHouse Ministries, and welcome back to... I about said straight conversation, and that would have been wrong. Hold on a second. Welcome back to GospelHouse Ministries. My name is Luke from GospelHouse Ministries. That was bad. I'm not doing that one.